Hello, and welcome to Solutions to Go, brought to you by Grand Canyon University. Hi, my name is Cece Bosma, and I'm really excited to share what I've learned over my many years in the classroom with you about how we can leverage assessment and feedback to get our students excited about learning. So join me, won't you, as we take a closer look at how assessment and feedback really work so well together. So for our session today, we want to look at how we can use assessment throughout our lessons. It seems like such a big word, but there are so many easy ways to manage this and to get this through the lesson. And then we will look at formative assessment specifically and how that's different than summative assessment and the importance of including formative assessment throughout the lesson. We will also think about how we use formative assessment for those learning checkpoints for both ourselves as teachers and how our students are learning, as well as to see how our students are gaining the understanding of the lesson objectives and giving our students that opportunity for reflection on their own learning. And then, of course, we want to see what is the importance of feedback. We've got these assessments. What do we do with that information? We want to make sure that we are utilizing it and providing our students with feedback. I love this quote from, of course, the First Lady, Michelle Obama. "If my future were determined just by my performance on a standardized test, I wouldn't be here." And I guarantee you that. And I too probably wouldn't be here if standardized tests were all that I was measured by. We can move past those standardized tests and look at how assessment can be used to really get an understanding of what a student is learning and how they are starting to understand and be able to use the material covered. So thinking about this in one word, we're going to be learning about assessment. Record one word that you think describes the goal of assessment. Learning, grades. What's your one word? To get us started, let's think about what is the purpose of assessment. Assessment works in several ways, but in order for assessment to meet the needs of teachers and students, it needs to be flexible. And so the goal of assessment is to gather evidence of student learning. We want to monitor progress and provide that timely feedback to inform instruction, both in the moment and for future lessons. What is high-quality assessment? There's a variety of ways that we can assess our students. And we want to make sure that we are not just waiting for the end of the lesson to assess. We don't know what our students are thinking and how they're developing their learning towards those learning objectives if we wait till the end to assess. We want to get those variety of assessments, and we want those to be frequent and ongoing. And we use those assessments to provide meaningful feedback for our students. And then, of course, we can use how they're learning to inform how we're teaching. And remember, the most important thing to focus on is how are the students learning, not how am I teaching. Because just giving an assessment and grading it does not scrape the surface of how useful a tool assessment can be. Have you ever had a student ask if their work is good enough? I have, and I've learned rather quickly this kind of thinking is driven by earning grades rather than gaining knowledge. High-quality assessments focus on the learning. Grades are not the focus. So what does this look like? We need to use a variety of assessments. Not only do we not want to bore our students, but we also want to gain a clear understanding of what they know. And not all students think the same. So gathering data in multiple ways will paint a clearer picture for us. Assessment needs to be frequent and ongoing, with meaningful feedback, and a letter grade is not meaningful feedback or a percentage. Finally, we need to make decisions about the content that we are teaching and how we are teaching it. If students are showing that they are missing foundational knowledge, we have to revise our plans and remediate and reteach in order for our students to move forward in their learning. We have formative assessments, which are assessments for learning, and we have summative assessments, assessments of learning. And the key difference between formative and summative assessments lie in their purpose: timing, feedback, focus, and influence on grades. Formative assessment is continuous and it provides ongoing feedback, and it focuses on the learning process and is primarily used to inform instruction. Whereas summative assessment occurs at the end of instruction, provides a summary judgment of learning outcomes, and it focuses on that final product or performance. And it also heavily influences the final grades or evaluations. So these are the key differences between formative and summative assessments, both being very useful in the classroom, but they do have two quite distinct purposes, and we'll go into that as we move forward. Using formative assessment in education offers several benefits for both students and teachers. Some of the key benefits include enhanced learning. Formative assessment promotes active student engagement, self-reflection, and the building of metacognitive skills. It helps students become aware of their strengths and weaknesses, leading to a deeper understanding of the subject matter. Timely feedback with formative assessments provides immediate feedback to the students, allowing them to make adjustments and improvements while the learning is still in progress. This feedback helps students identify areas where they need further support or practice. Formative assessments also help us to target instruction. The data enables teachers to identify individual students' needs and adapt instruction accordingly. It helps educators provide targeted interventions, and it also helps them tailor their teaching strategies to address specific learning gaps. We can also use formative assessment for personalized learning. Teachers can differentiate instruction to meet the diverse needs of their students, and they can modify the pace and content as well as instructional methods based on individual student progress, maximizing learning outcomes for all of our students. We also can use formative assessment for progress monitoring. When teachers do formative assessment effectively, students learn at roughly double the rate than they do without it. And that comes from Dylan William, an expert pioneer in using formative assessments. As we've heard, formative assessments is an ongoing and interactive process that involves gathering evidence of students' learning and understanding during instruction. And it's designed to provide feedback for both teachers and students for improving learning outcomes. Formative assessment focuses on monitoring student progress, identifying learning gaps, and informing instructional decisions in real time. Unlike summative assessments, which are typically used to evaluate learning outcomes at the end of a unit or course, formative assessments is an integral part of that learning process, and it allows for timely interventions and adjustment of instruction. As we navigate what makes a good formative assessment, it helps to identify what does not. The interim test data is generally used beyond the classroom, and the delivery is controlled by the school or district, so they do not help fully with the task of guiding instruction or informing about students' learning and what they need help with. Yes and no questions are simply not going to provide the diagnostic information that makes formative assessment useful. Traditional question and answer is only going to reveal what those who are eager to answer questions know. And everyone that is not speaking is a mystery and quite possibly not even engaged. Now that we understand what formative assessment isn't, let's take a look at what it is. We want every student participating, ideally at the same time, in order to not waste time. It helps to have all students participating simultaneously. Because of the often but not always informal nature of formative assessment, we can use some informal methods such as Kagan strategies, think, pair, share, stand up, hand up, pair up. Replace those traditional Q&A sessions with something that gets all of our students connected at the same time. Now, every student is required and encouraged to participate. Exit tickets is a catchy name for a quick way to collect data on what the students learn. You can have students provide a short answer to a question or give them a 3-2-1 prompt, such as name 3 things you learned, 2 questions you have, and 1 thing that you liked. There are many other ways to use an exit ticket as well, such as a 1-minute summary, or a question that asks them to apply the knowledge that you've just covered and hopefully that they've gained in some new way. The more you practice with exit tickets, the better you will get at providing a prompt that helps you to understand what students are learning. Plus, having students engage in this on a regular basis creates routine and builds in reflection for the students. And this is helping students to gain learning agency for themselves. Entrance or exit tickets require a written response to a question or prompt. As an entrance ticket, you can use it to uncover misconceptions that will help guide instruction. Tickets can be a simple piece of paper. They can be a form with a sentence starter. Use a Post-it and have the placement of the post be a part of the feedback, such as red, yellow, and green for levels of understanding. This will quickly help you to evaluate what students understand and uncover misconceptions. Throughout a lesson, there is opportunity to check for understanding so that you are giving students a chance to reflect on their learning and giving you a gauge of how well the learning objectives are being met. Notice that a simple Q&A is not listed, and I urge you to develop new techniques that engage all students together rather than one at a time. Some other ways that we can conduct a quick formative assessment is with technology. And here is just a few. These are all apps and websites that you can go to. Most often they offer a free version. We have Padlet. You can conduct surveys, multiple choice questions, even create a word cloud, which allows students to virtually contribute to the same document and share their ideas with each other. Clickers is a wonderful tool that allows students to simply hold up a QR code that a teacher can then scan with their cell phone in the app. So that is nice because the students don't need the technology, only the teacher. Google Forms is a great way to collect data because it gives you all of the information into a spreadsheet. Slido is fantastic for multiple choice questions, creating a Wordle, as well as short answer responses. And then we have Flipgrid, where students can use video to share their ideas. Mentimeter is an awful lot like Slido, and Poll Everywhere is another one of those multiple choice, similar to Slido and Mentimeter. So those are just some quick options that you can use in your class, and they can help students to reflect and for you to gain data on the students' level of understanding and how well they are meeting those learning objectives. And then we have assessment of learning. And I'm not going to spend too much time here because, frankly, this could be a whole nother session, but I just want to give a brief overview of how to assess learning, because the typical multiple choice short answer does not have to be the only way that we assess our students. That typical written examination, short answers, essay questions, multiple choice could give our students a practical assessment that's used to evaluate a learner's ability to apply the knowledge and skills in a real-world scenario. And these can be useful in science, social studies classes. Project-based learning is the unit in and of itself, but we can also use projects as an assignment at the end of a unit for learners to complete specific tasks or projects, which may be individual or group-based. The project assesses a learner's ability to research, analyze, and present information. And it also requires those problem-solving skills. So it will give the students a real opportunity to show what they have learned and how they can use that knowledge. Presentations and oral assessments are another way. It doesn't have to just be in writing, and this helps with differentiation as well. Learners can deliver a presentation or engage in an oral discussion to demonstrate their understanding of a topic. Communication skills, critical thinking, and their ability to articulate are all demonstrated in an oral assessment. Portfolios are a great way to showcase the learner's progress and achievements, as well as providing a point of reflection. They provide a holistic view of the learner's abilities, and they can include a variety of artifacts. It can be essays, artwork, project reports, daily classwork. We can also include performance assessments. They come in really handy if you're teaching music, dance, and sports, but how could we use a performance assessment in a history class? I think that there's many ways and many opportunities for a performance assessment to showcase what the students have learned. Formative and summative assessments are used throughout the learning process to provide feedback and guide instruction. An effective assessment of learning provides valuable insights into the learner's progress, and it identifies areas of strength and improvement, and it helps guide future instruction and learning experiences. When assessing learning, it is important to consider the validity, the reliability, and the fairness, as well as transparency of the assessment. The validity ensures that the assessment measures what it intends to measure, and the reliability ensures consistency and reproducibility of the results. And when we think about fairness, it involves providing equal opportunities for all learners.
Now it's your turn. Go to the assessment handout and review all of the different types of summative assessments that you can use in your classroom. Thinking about an upcoming lesson, how will you use summative assessment to assess what your students have learned? Take a minute and pause the video to review that and develop a plan, and then come back when you're ready.
Going to really focus on the formative assessment here. We want to give timely feedback. We want feedback to be meaningful and useful. So it is important to provide specific, constructive, and actionable information that can guide the learner's improvement. So thinking about this, what sort of feedback do you give your students? In the book Teach Like a Champion, Lemov tells us that praise is central to the development of a growth mindset. However, praising traits rather than actions accomplishes the opposite. We don't want to tell our students that they're really smart. We want to tell our students that their efforts in studying for this test, their efforts in working out these complicated math problems shows in that they were able to arrive at the correct answer. We don't want to tell them, you got the right answer, you're so smart. We want to give our students feedback that they can action. And if the final grade is on the paper, there's no further action to take, right? That's it. That's your grade. You're stuck with it. So oftentimes, if we hand back a sheet of paper that looks like the one we see here, the teacher may have written something, let's say like this, probably not for an F, but just, I think you'll get the drift of where I'm going with this. Teresa, your lab report contains all of the elements required. Good job. Your analysis needs to connect your data to your conclusion. We will meet to work on what this looks like. But remember, there's already a letter grade on this, maybe a C. When Teresa looks at this sheet of paper with this beautiful note written there, Teresa's going to read, Teresa, your lab report was good, but I don't like you, so I nitpicked your analysis. Mixing grades with feedback can be challenging because students often focus on the grade and then don't consider the feedback. So how can we rewrite the feedback? One important thing to share about feedback that I learned from Dylan William, who I mentioned earlier, is that if possible, provide feedback and grades separately. On formative assessments or drafts, provide that feedback and allow students to act on your suggestions. When the teachers only provide feedback along with the final grade, many students don't even read it, really care about what the teacher wrote because they already received the final grade. So here is another example. B plus, nice job, Marie. What do you think might be the issue there? Well, yeah, nice job doesn't really tell us much, and all we get is a grade. But what if Marie got the following instead? Marie, you did a great job on proofreading your essay. I can tell because of the crossouts and rewrites on your rough draft. The next step is to review the peer feedback you've received and integrate it into your final draft. Feedback. We want to be specific. We have to avoid general statements, good job, nice work, and provide specific examples or evidence to support our feedback. Identify the strengths and weaknesses of the learners, focusing on particular areas that require improvement. Having a rubric can also help with that. We want to focus on the tasks and learning objectives and relate our feedback directly to those learning objectives and criteria that were established at the beginning of the task. They have to be clearly spelled out for our learners so that they are not confused as they go down the path of learning. And this helps learners understand how their performance aligns with the intended outcome. Be sure to balance positive and constructive feedback. Acknowledge and highlight the learner's strengths and accomplishments, while also providing suggestions for improvement. This balanced approach encourages and motivates and helps the learner to understand what they are doing well and where they can work to improve. Keep that growth mindset approach. Frame feedback in a way that promotes a growth mindset, emphasizing the abilities and skills can be developed through effort and practice. Encourage the learner to view feedback as an opportunity for growth rather than as a judgment of their abilities. Provide practical suggestions and resources the learner can utilize to improve their performance. This might include recommending additional reading materials, suggesting specific practice exercises, or offering guidance on where to seek further support. We want to encourage self-reflection, prompt the learner to reflect on their own work and performance, ask questions that help them analyze their strengths and weaknesses, and encourage them to set their own goals for improvement. And this will foster a sense of ownership and responsibility for their learning. We also want to make sure, as we've been saying all along, and I can't say it enough, provide timely feedback. We want to deliver this feedback as soon as possible after the completion of a task or assessment. Timely feedback allows our learners to connect to their recent performance and make those necessary adjustments promptly. Be really clear and specific, using language that the students will understand. Avoid jargon, don't use ambiguous terms. Make sure that the learner understands the feedback and can take actionable steps. Be positive and supportive. Sometimes this is tough, right? We as teachers, we have a heavy load, but it is so important that we lend support to our students and keep it upbeat. Not learning something the first time is not a bad thing. We all learn at different rates, and we want to make sure that our students understand that. And we can do that through encouraging ongoing communication and dialogue between learners and instructors, and provide those opportunities for learners to seek clarification and ask questions. As well, are you creating a space that encourages people to try and that it's okay to fail? We want to remember that effective feedback is a two-way process. We can also learn from the feedback that our students give us. By providing specific, constructive, and actionable feedback, we're going to help our learners understand their strengths and focus in on those areas that need improvement and guide them on their learning journey. Offer work that matters and explain why it matters. Offer students choice to practice skills that they're passionate about and to explore topics that pique their curiosity. Empathize and ask questions. We can acknowledge that some tasks are difficult. Frame our comments using warm, cool, and hard feedback. Challenge students to expand their ideas and focus on their strengths. When we know that we have some strengths, it helps us to work through our weaknesses. When all we provide is a grade, students tend to focus on the missed questions versus the areas of strength. And this is why formative practices are so essential. We can provide feedback without a grade, allowing students to grow and improve prior to providing summative assessments. We want our students to embrace being able to do their work in drafts and to gain knowledge as they repeat the work through the draft process.
Now it's your turn. Go to the constructive feedback handout and work through the activity. It will help you build skills in offering constructive feedback for your students. Pause the video, and when you're ready, come back.
So I leave you with this. Assessment and feedback are like peanut butter and jelly. If we assess our students and we never share that information with them and what we're seeing and what the data is showing us, we're not even doing half the work that we need to do. And I encourage you to bring in those formative assessments into your teaching because you will see how it benefits you. You will waste less time teaching things that don't need to be recovered, as well as knowing when to focus on things where students are perhaps struggling. And then when you are doing those assessments, provide the students with that quick feedback so they can take that information and improve their work and improve their knowledge and work towards mastering those learning objectives. We are here to empower, educate, and inspire you, the teachers in the classroom, as you serve your community and take action to fulfill your purpose in serving your students and families.